To the democracy for which it stands. No, it's to the republic for which it stands. Love to talk about that. Love to talk about getting out the vote. Talking to someone from Oklahoma, and who's Kelly Lynn?
Welcome back to Who is Kelly Lynn? I am Kelly Lynn. On today's show, we're talking to a world global security expert, Timothy Knight. We're going to talk about some politics and whatnot. And with the election coming up, I think it's very important that we look at topics about Christians and gun owners registering to vote. These people that are probably conservative, uh, they sit out a lot of times, sit on the sidelines and don't get involved. And if they had those numbers, they'd probably voting. We'd probably have little to gripe about on the conservative side if they actually participated. Um, I myself, as a citizen, have participated in the political process and become an elected official in the past, a Norman City Councilman back in 2020 when George Floyd riots were happening and the defunding of the police. Norman, Oklahoma was one of 11 cities that defunded the police. And it was just crazy here during the pandemic. And as a citizen, I'd had enough, and I stood up and went up there and we fixed the problem, got rid of 8 or 9 people that defunded the police, and we got all the funding back. What we're looking at today is a situation with our country that we have to have citizen participation if we're wanting to change the direction of our country is headed. And Mr. Knight has been involved in that. He did a recall petition back in 2013, changing some directions of the Colorado state government and what was happening there. He's been involved in the NRA at different levels and been a whistleblower in those capacities, trying to figure out problems that are happening inside that organization. It's a very interesting conversation. We're talking politics. We're talking your rights as Christians and standing up and your abilities as Christian to affect this election as gun owners and just participating in the process and how important it is to be vigilant, not just reactionary. I hope you enjoy this conversation today with Tim Knight on Who is Kelly Lynn right here. Hope you enjoy it. We'll talk to you later. Mr. Knight, how are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you. And you? You good?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us on Who is Kelly Lynn. You're probably wondering, who is this dude that I'm even sitting with right now? But I'm just a guy that hadn't figured out what he wants to be when he grows up. But I'm happy to have you here, and we're figuring that out along the way.
I'm right there in that department with you.
Well, you're a guy that has done some spectacular things in life, it seems. From what I know about you, I know that you're a security expert, a global security expert, is how I'll put it, that you've worked with operations around the world. Saying it lightly, I do think. I know that you've been into the political world, did some fantastic things back in 2013 in Colorado with recalls. I've faced some of that here in Oklahoma, and we have some stories to talk about that. And then just real quickly, talk a little bit about your time with the NRA. And I don't know if you're still involved with that or what all you're doing, but you seem like a guy cut from my own cloth with some of the things that you've done here in the United States, looking politically, working for our rights and our freedoms and standing up for those things. So I'm happy to have you here today. And if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit of background other than what I just covered, we'd sure appreciate it.
Sure. Been a small business owner. I was mostly just a citizen keeping his head down before 2013 in the Colorado recalls. And the reason we kind of really got traction on that was a lot of politicians were looking to pin bad things on good people and blame them for it and pass laws. And we actually didn't stop those laws from being enacted, but what we were able to do is recall the president of the Colorado Senate and one other senator and get outspent 22 to 1. We had big pharma, Indian casino money, every favor that could be called in, 2 billionaires, 2 political parties, national attention. Bill Clinton and Barack Obama's ground teams, grassroots teams, were working against us in this little tiny recall election or elections in Colorado, and we beat them. But Bill Clinton even made a robocall the night before our election, which I don't know if I want Bill Clinton calling my house right before an election in the evening, but like, how are you doing? Please go out and vote. But we got that done with the good citizens of Colorado Springs and Pueblo because they were the ones that spoke. They were the ones that wanted the recall. We helped the function. Um, After doing that, I decided that I've always been a gun owner, and part of the recall was founded on the grounds of the Second Amendment and infringement on those rights. And I spent a lot of time with gun owners in a political way. And I decided to run for the NRA board of directors, and I ran by petition, which means I had to go out and face the members, talk to them to get on the ballot. And I served on the NRA board of directors for 4.5 years. And when I started to see, I had concerns about some of the spending and management habits, which have been in the news, and I set out first privately inside the board, said, hey, these are the things that I'm concerned about. We should address them. Let's do a full accounting. Let's not do anything other than the right thing for the members who elected us, to make sure that the association is on task with its what it's supposed to do, its mission statement. And for speaking up, I was removed from all my committees, which made me an ineffective member of the board of directors. And I resigned. Unfortunately, I didn't want to, saying what I believed was wrong with the association and what needed to be fixed. I'm a huge believer in what the NRA's mission statement was, and I didn't want to be pulled off task for that. And I believe over the years we've seen the NRA not be quite as effective, and members are questioning it. It's their right to do so. And I said out loud what the problems were, and through several court cases, the state of New York named me a whistleblower because I was punished for speaking the truth and expressing concern.
Man, that's a lot wrapped into that, huh? It's
It was.
just a guy wanting to stand up, do the right thing, protect our rights, and then it gets into the bureaucracy of the organization that you're with, and probably some egos in there. I would have to think when everybody gets up to the top levels and trying to dictate what public policy is happening. I'm guessing that you probably had some bumping of heads with some folks, huh?
Yeah, in the NRA, it has a lot of focuses. Of course, it has a long history of supporting hunting, and it has a long history of safety and education. And in the 1970s, it got more directly involved in um, legislation and lobbying, and that was a newer front for them. And because the members asked for it and they believed that it needed to be done. And so the NRA stepped. I actually had an interesting conversation when I was a teenager with Joe Foss, the Medal of Honor recipient, Marine Corps aviator and ace. He flew with my grandfather in World War II, and I had no idea who this man was. Sitting down with my grandfather for lunch when I was visiting my grandfather, and they say never meet your heroes. But it's cool when you meet a guy who is a hero and you find out who he was. And he was on the NRA board in the 1980s and 90s, and he kind of laid out for me why the NRA needed to get involved in politics. It was something that they needed to protect. So having that grounding, and kind of just being a person with their head down and whatnot, I thought I could add to the grassroots effort of knocking on doors, meeting members, meeting citizens, getting them engaged, getting them to vote. And we're seeing now in the current election process, kind of to segue to that, we're seeing um, gun owners and hunters are not registered to vote and voting in enough numbers. It's probably not the case, hopefully, in Oklahoma where you are, but it's a big thing in Pennsylvania. It's the largest hunting state in the union. There are more deer hunters in Pennsylvania than anywhere else, and they're not voting. They're not engaged. And what I specialized in when I was on the board and through 2013 was engaging, getting out and talking to people, making it personal in a nice way, encouraging them to be involved, showing them that one vote can make a difference, and how that happened, and some amazing things. So I traveled eventually to about 18 states when I was serving on the board on my dime. The NRA never paid for any of that, to get people out to vote from the left coast to the right coast, went from Maine all the way out to California, where I was originally born. I live in Tennessee now, but the engaging with people was my specialty, and I brought that to the board, and I still do that to this very day, getting people engaged in the process.
Yeah, that's a big deal, and I can't believe those numbers that I've seen. I've seen those reports in the news where it's just the Christian vote and the gun owner and the hunter vote. That how many gun owners that are not registered to vote?
Right.
That kind of blows my mind. That if you participate and respect and cherish that right that we have, that is granted to us, I think, by God, but enshrined in our Constitution to be able to protect ourselves, be able to feed ourselves, things like that. Those seem very important to me, and I can't wrap my head around that. That so many gun owners and hunters are not even registered to vote to help protect that what they enjoy. That kind of kills me because I've seen it here. Um, you can be passive in life and just not get involved, but then you just have to deal with what is dictated your way, and that's the way you have to live. But if you don't get involved and have a say in the way you have to live, you're going to get run over, and your
Yeah.
rights are going to get trampled. So you have to get involved. We've seen that. I've participated that some here in Norman, Oklahoma. When we've done that, I got involved in politics a little bit myself. We're talking about a recall. Um, we did that here in Norman, Oklahoma after the George Floyd riots. We were one of 11 cities
Hmm.
that defunded the police, and we started a recall here. And man, you've never seen a better grassroots ever. Maybe you have there in Colorado, but it had to be something very along the line of that. We had to get thousands of signatures on this, and they did get the signatures. And I mean, it was a citizens effort like I've never seen, a grassroots effort that I've never seen anything close to it. Where I mean, people were set up all across town getting these signatures. Unfortunately, the city had its own operation for doing a recall, which it doesn't have to be allowed in Oklahoma at all, any kind of recall. But um, the city charter allowed for it, but it had its own process. And then it went to the after we did all that work, it went to the state supreme court. They said you didn't follow the state's process, so all that work just went out the window. But we got it at the ballot box anyways, because when they did that and had defunded those police, we were able to get drive out 8 out of 9 of those folks that did that eventually, and turn this town around a little bit. It's always a political fisticuffs here because it is a microcosm of America with the University of Oklahoma being here in Red, Oklahoma. It is the blue dot. They call it the
Sure.
blue oasis in Oklahoma because it's split almost right down the middle, just like America. The same topics that uh, go national come to the city council here. The national issues, they try to make them local issues, and it's all kind of nonsense all the time. But and it's still like that, and I think it's always going to be like that, just because the diversity that you have in this Oklahoma town. It would be a great case study to look at Norman, Oklahoma, and just compare it to the nation, because I bet you it's pretty close geographically, demographically. There are fewer black folk here in Norman than the national average, but not by much.
Mhm.
I think everything else probably breaks down pretty relative to along uh, the lines of what America's makeup looks like, and it's fisticuffs all the time. From it doesn't matter what the issue is, they're ready to fight and battle it out on anything and everything all the time.
Sure.
And
I mean,
it'll just wear you out though too.
it will, but you know what you said when you've never seen anything grassroots like that. That's what activated me. When I said, what can I do about it? And I didn't believe I could do anything. And someone said, "Hey, do they have a recall provision in Colorado?" Well, they did. They still do, but it's been tightened since we succeeded. But what you saw was, people willing to give their days up to go collect signatures, to walk door to door. They weren't getting anything for it other than expressing their displeasure through the ballot box, which is where we all need to start, right? And you saw this people giving away time and effort, spending their own money to make signs. It's an immense effort which engages people politically that might not have otherwise feel that it can engage, and also shows citizens that they can make a difference. And that is always a good thing. So many people, like we were talking about the hunters before, feel like they don't make a difference. We were 5 guys who led it. and thousands of people who voted. And we'd never done anything political before other than vote. We were told we would not succeed. Even parts of the gun lobby, not the NRA, but other parts of the gun lobby said, "You guys, your political experience can be measured on an egg timer." Cool. Are you here to help engage citizens, or are you here to tell us to shut up and sit down because you're the experts? Well, they didn't step up. We had to do it, and we did it. Um, and I think it engaged a lot of people. So, of course, your recall experience didn't start well because it wasn't super structured, but you got where you wanted to go. The citizens got engaged. And it sounds like, did you end up going to court over the process of making sure that you could do the recall?
Well, what I'll tell you this: we had it in court because one of the council members was challenging it,
Hmm.
and then they had the mayor that was close to, it was 18,600 signatures or something that they needed for her, and I think that they had got that, but they had ruled in our favor in our district court the day before and said, yeah, you've met your threshold for this recall petition. The very next day, the Oklahoma Supreme Court from another city, El Reno, Oklahoma, I do believe, they had done the same thing where their city had allowed them to petition, and but it had gone to the Oklahoma Supreme Court, and the day after ours, from our city provision, was ruled in our favor. The Oklahoma Supreme Court from that other city said, "Hey, this is invalid because you didn't follow the state procedure for recall."
Oh, wow.
Even though, so even though we got it ruled in our favor, the very next day that or it could have been the same day that that Supreme Court decision came out, the day that we got that favor. Anyway, it was overturned. The judge went back and changed her ruling the next day because of that Supreme Court decision came out. Uh, and it just kind of made it null and void because we didn't follow the state's process, even though we followed the city's process. But even with that, uh, with the recall, we still set people up and started flipping seats. We made it so difficult that during the process, like a couple of them quit, decided not to run. Some of them resigned during the process. Some decided not to run again.
Hmm.
And we got close to an election time, and I was one of the guys that said, "Hey, uh, if these yahoos can do this, I think this monkey can do this too." And I went up there and we went up there and we made a difference. And my only thing was like, hey, I didn't. I've always paid attention to politics, national level.
Hmm.
I didn't pay as much attention to the local and state level, and I didn't realize because this was during the pandemic as well.
Sure.
They
Oh,
were
wow.
doing all kinds of crazy stuff,
Yeah.
shutting down church services, doing the crazy mask mandates that were. It was like we were in California in Norman, Oklahoma,
Right.
and luckily they got all that shut down. The U.S. attorney came in because she was shutting down religious church services, and the attorney general came in and said, "Hey, we're about," because we had a female mayor at the time, and she said, "Hey," they sent some nicely worded letters like, "Hey, we're about to light you up in the courtroom if you continue your policies." So, but that's what started it. It was all these crazy COVID mandates, and then they defunded the police, and it was just nonsense. And we're like, we are not New York, we are not California, we're in Oklahoma. Look where how everybody else is living in Oklahoma. We want to live like that too.
Sure.
So the people were up in arms, and then it just pushed it over the top when they defunded the police. In one of 11 cities, and here we are in Oklahoma, a conservative bastion, and they just went crazy like this, and it fed up people. And even during the pandemic, we were able to go out, get signatures, um, and work all that up, and got citizens willing to run, and we took over those seats that we didn't get them out of there to make them quit or shame them into quitting or make them see that their life was that they were going to lose their election anyways. But we were able to get a couple people in there, and then we are able to replace the mayor, and altogether we got rid of 8 out of 9 of them, and
So,
made a difference.
of course, it made a difference. The tough part is, okay, you made a difference. So, outside the National Archives, where the Constitution is kept, when you walk up the stairs from the street on the right, it says eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. And how do we, you, me, citizens out there, people raising kids, get your kids and other people to understand that, to have that light on a hill, to have these freedoms, to be engaged, to at least have an open conversation about something. And when you're not okay with it, to redress your grievances. They're not teaching that. We're not teaching that. And the only thing we have left is our example. So, folks, everyone listening to this, you, me, we have a role to play here. We are either citizens engaged in our republic. We don't live in a democracy, by the way, folks. We practice democratic things. It is, we live in a constitutional republic. And that means that citizens need to be engaged because being a subject sucks. We don't
Indeed.
want that. We're not interested. And to engage like that takes time and it takes effort. And you know what? It takes example. You doing what you guys did with your recall, people said, "Oh, you did a great thing out in Colorado." We did do a great thing, but we couldn't have done it without engaged citizens who'd had enough. And that's what we have to always tap into because politics has become, as Dan Bongino often says, snapshots and sound bites, right? That's what most people get to digest. That's what they hear. That's what they see. They see that President Trump was at McDonald's, and that's great. And was it a stunt? Yes, but it was an effective stunt. But how do we as citizens engage other citizens to realize they can make a difference? It's okay to care, and it's okay to engage. People are afraid to put Trump signs in their yards or stickers on their cars. I was reading an article about this because people will, slash your tires, have the trim ripped off. Both of those things have happened to me, by the way. Um, this is not the republic that we're supposed to have. We're supposed to have discourse. We're supposed to have engagement. We're supposed to be able to redress our grievances. We're supposed to be able to share our ideas. And the fact is, we're being pushed so far now that some citizens, thankfully, are waking up to realize that all those years of, I just want to be left alone, just leave me alone, those days need to be over. And thankfully, I think we're getting closer to the fact where more people are saying, let's engage, let's vote, let's talk about politics at the kitchen table, let's share some ideas publicly with other people that may not always agree with us. But if we aren't having those conversations, we get to the place when during a pandemic where politicians in your town will go, we're going to defund the police like they did in Minnesota and they burn stuff down.
Yeah.
Citizens are not okay with any of that.
Well, I mean, I think that is part of the problem that what you're talking about is instead of being vigilant, we are reactionary.
Yes.
Go about our business instead of maintaining and monitoring.
We're so
And
busy in our lives, right? We
it
are.
is, and you have hopes. Here's where I'm at now, and I guarantee you, you probably feel this, and most Americans feel this. You had a trust in your institutions, like, hey, they're doing all right. I don't even need to pay attention. They're doing what they're supposed to do. I can't imagine. I don't know one, not a single one. Maybe the U.S. Marshals, uh, a federal agency or institution that I have any trust in. That's about the only one because they seem like they're just straight line and do their work. I know that they do have problems of politics inside in the leadership, but it doesn't seem like it's uh, gone against the American people like the FBI. It
Right.
seems like they're out to get you. The CIA. I don't know what all they do, but there's some things that are surely questionable for the American people that we don't know about. What operations are going on? The people would be totally surprised if they knew all how that has manipulated the American people, the media. Who all knows what has happened there? Some people might. Some people have worked in those industries and uh, might have some insight into that. But any institution, I don't trust. I'm a lawyer. I'm getting to where I'm so worn out just by judges, and you just want to shake your head like, what is this judge thinking? All the time. It's hard to have trust in almost any institution whatsoever. And if you have that, what do you have? What do you have as a country if you cannot? You have a banana republic if you cannot trust your institutions, and you're just like, it's not a fair process. You can see how they're weaponized. The lawfare is a word that I've heard a lot lately,
Sure.
and that seems real. And what do you do when you're crushed under that and you're just a regular citizen and you want to stand up, but then they have their unlimited power and abilities just to crush you, harass you. Um, and I do that sometimes. That's what I do in my law business a lot of times, is stand up for people like that against the government and stuff like that, and try to give them a fighting chance. But it's become so powerful and out of control and corrupt at almost every level. I don't know where we go from here to regain trust in our institutions in America to where we have a functional country.
Yeah, there's a bumper sticker I have that's on my gun safe, and it says, "Constitution is the supreme law of the land, except we're prohibited by law." You know,
That's a
what?
good one.
Uh,
That's a,
what are we doing here? And it's got to get bad enough for people to evaluate what isn't working. We talked, a while ago. We talked about local politics because I didn't pay attention to it either. Because if our roads are paved, if the police show up when you call, the fire department shows up when you call, and your kids get an education, most people don't pay attention to local politics until those things start to degrade. And then you saw during COVID where parents were getting like, "Wait, you're teaching our kids what?" Where all of a
mhm.
sudden they got an opening to their kids' education, and we have seen, because I guess for a moment there we were all paying very much attention to all these things that we were living our busy lives, and all of a sudden, maybe mistakenly, they turned off our busy lives, and then all of a sudden we started paying attention as a whole, right? And we're like, and then they continued, they pushed. They did all these tyrannical things like you must wear a mask, you must do these things. I got to spend a lot more time with my family, which was great. Got to catch up on Friends and watching that whole thing again when the binge watching of TV or whatever. Great. But I picked up some hobbies. I started doing some Dutch oven cooking, things like that. But what I also did was dig in and read more books, pay attention to what was going on, what was actually coming out of government at every level. I understand a lot of people bought fish tanks and got new hobbies and new pets. Great. But what really also happened was a lot of people had their eyes opened up to, okay, we now have established that the masks most people were wearing don't actually do anything, right? They don't. But we were told to put them on. We were told to stay 6 feet away from each other, but it turns out they just made up 6 feet. That's not a thing. We took a whole bunch, and I think that their attempt at pushing, and I guess some people thought, well, let's be safe, let's do the right thing, but it's gone past that now, where we are not supposed to question those things and the question the people who did it. And I think American people, I'm hoping on the whole, have had enough of that, and that they're going to move beyond that to engage, stop being subjects and being citizens. Now, how we carve out a little time in our lives with that snapshot and soundbite world to find time for local politics. It's gonna take people like you, like me, and others to talk to them and engage. I before I joined you, I watched a couple of things that I found on the media side on Rumble. You did the Reagan movie, and you were interviewing them about. Was I was caught by the governor when he asked them a question about, hey, did you enjoy Oklahoma? And, he was talking about the film industry coming to Oklahoma. It was so welcoming, and all those people were coming in there. Well, why was that? It's because Oklahoma realized, hey, what's ever going on in Georgia or California, um, that's not going to work for us shooting a movie. So we want to bring up, we're going to shoot this movie. So we're going to go find a place where freedom is more respected, where people are engaging, where they want, where we're welcome and they want us there. That's a great story right there of just filming of the Reagan movie. Um, we as citizens need to be engaged. We need to take this thing. We need to welcome other people in, welcome the businesses in to all the places that want to have them. Now, I'm a native Californian, and I left in 1988, and I haven't lived there since. And I don't go to places. I didn't move to Colorado or South Carolina, or I live in Tennessee, to move to change them. I want to
Mm.
preserve the essence of what Tennessee is. Tennessee has different politics and different things. But as an engaged citizen of Tennessee, I sat down with some gubernatorial candidates at the last election, and we sat and talked about the Second Amendment. We talked about what Tennessee needs. So they were listening. In California, they would never talk about that. I mean, in the minority, you are in the minority, politically speaking. There's a one party system there. But if we have some balance and we're at least listening to each other, I'm a big, firm believer in the Constitution. We start there. If anyone's not on that page, I have a hard time with having a conversation with them. But and a lot of politicians are there; they just ignore that. But getting citizens to understand their role in the Constitution and how they uphold it, because it is that they come from God, those rights. But as we as citizens, we as people, we as Christians, or whatever your faith might be, if you don't engage with the government that is attempting to always shifting, always moving around, whether it be local or state, federal, county, parish, throw in Louisiana there. If we're not engaging, we're going to lose it right in front of our eyes. And that's what COVID brought us was, wait, what's happening now? From the classroom on up.
Well, I think you make an astute observation there, and it's one not quite that, but I would say, besides all the death and the devastation that came with COVID, all the mental problems, everything that bad came with COVID, I have to look at it as almost an overall positive for the people because it pulled back the curtain. We saw the great Oz back there pulling on the machinery. The jig is up when it comes to just the information control. Who believes in your news media anymore?
Right.
You can't believe anything. In the schools, look, it was just the scales were falling off the eyes of the American people because of COVID, and it has changed how people perceive their government, their institutions that deliver them the information that they're supposed to be able to trust in. I mean,
Yep.
you can see it right now. Like mainstream media, that is a dying dinosaur. That media, that outlet for that kind of information, I can see it just dying because nobody trusts it in these talking heads that you put two people on to just argue about an issue, from one side and the other side, or it's just one side beating up on the other and
Yep.
just spinning it their way instead of just some straight, hey, here are the facts, nothing but the facts, ma'am. And uh, there's just no trust anymore. And when parents wake up and they don't trust their schools, they don't trust their news institutions to deliver information, they don't trust any of their government programs, there's a reason for that. There's
Yes.
plenty of reason, and it's kind of bad that we see that pull all this back, and we see just all the everything behind the curtain, and see how awful it is, and how we've been fooled and duped for years, and it's just a whole bunch of nonsense that luckily we're awake to now, and I think it's going to make some great changes going forward. Who knows what the world's going to be? The With AI and technologies, the world's kind of a crazy place right now in my life because we don't know. I'm not going to get too crazy into stuff, but when you talk about all the UFOs or whatever they even call them now, all the
Right.
alien stuff coming out, all
We don't
the
know.
the AI, all the mistrust. We're in a strange place in the world right now where nothing seems, there's no certainty to anything.
Well, and we're like, I mean, you just stated they're not telling us everything, and they're also by omission just leaving stuff out. Like with this crime statistics that came out, they're like, oh, crimes down, crimes down, crimes down, and then the FBI revised their statistics, and nobody's talking about this right now. It's actually up. Not they were saying it's down 2 point something percent. Well, when the FBI revised it, which meant they had the numbers the whole time, and they didn't want to sort through the process to get it right. It's up 4.5%. So, but they don't want to talk about that because that's not a thing. Are they interfering with elections? Yeah, they are because they're not. You and I and many people don't trust the fact that if 4.5 was the thing, they should have said it was 4.5 the thing, and every media network should be talking about it. Fox is, and people on podcasts are, and other places, but ABC, CBS, NBC, they're not reporting any of that. It's just don't show them, kind of that Oz thing. We're not going to show you behind the curtain. We're going to show you what's in front of the curtain. You can look at all the cool things. And the part that concerns me is that I think too many citizens aren't equipped to question it. They just aren't, either by time in their lives or just to being a little skeptical. When has the government done anything efficiently and well? Have they done some things well? Sure. They put a man on the moon. I got it. Elon could probably do it for less now. I mean, if he could, but we just don't. That's never a function. And you saw how citizens do rise. Americans are phenomenal at rising to the occasion and helping each other out. And you saw that in Western North Carolina and parts of Tennessee during that horrible storm, of course, that dumped water in North Carolina, large mountain troughs that just dumped water in them. And it's devastated there. And you saw people with their own helicopters flying in, delivering supplies, doing things. They weren't ever going to get money back for that. Although I did see a really cool like GoFundMe thing for helicopter fuel, and they said we need $100,000 for helicopter fuel. It was like $119,000 in 2 hours because
Wow.
Americans are so giving. Now we just need to tap into some of that engagement in the political process, and it doesn't always need to be just lay out the facts because the name calling, we're never going to stop that. We just aren't. It's politics. It's a very dirty game. Even inside the NRA board of directors, it was ugly. But citizens, you got to break it down point by point. Am I better off today? Do I feel like these institutions that were being advertised throughout our lives? When you grew up, you heard the FBI was going to do the right thing. Now you're questioning, like, because of who I am and I served on the NRA board, might the ATF knock on my door? Might the FBI not investigate something because of who I am and what I did? That's not how this is supposed to work. We all need to have and believe in those institutions. And until we do again or have more trust, we have a real problem. We're getting that democracy of 50.1% as opposed to the constitutional republic we're supposed to have.
And no doubt that everything that you just mentioned, that keeps us from getting good people. There's something so gross to me about career politicians that that is what they want to do with their life. The way I see it, here I've got a buddy that's running right now. He's probably going to get elected.
Mhm.
Not a career politician. I couldn't even imagine this man ever wanting any hankling about running for office. He's been political. He's helped get some people elected, but I had no idea that this guy would ever be front and center.
Yeah.
But he's the exact kind of guy I want. He's been a policeman, a fireman.
Mm.
He's a rancher. He's a small business owner. He's the kind of guy that, hey, just he has some real life experience outside of that, and
Sure.
I hope that he can go and do that business and be untouched by it and remain who he is. Because that's the thing. It's hard enough to get good people like that.
Yeah.
That I feel like that are the real citizen representatives instead of the career politicians. Because you go in there, man, this guy has put up with so much hell running his race.
Right.
They put him on national news and everything. Uh, I made national news for city council race. They were calling me racist, all kinds of stuff. How are you going to get anybody? I was a city councilman, run for city councilman in Norman, Oklahoma, making national news because of the
Right.
implications. It was Fox News, it was Newsmax, and then Rachel Maddow was calling me a racist on MSNBC. People call me like, "Hey, Rachel Maddow's talking about you." Oh yeah.
Yay.
Oh, she said you were a racist. I was like, "Thanks a lot, little boy," but whatever. uh, but it just you got to have some thick skin, and there's plenty of good people that would have good intentions that could do a great job. But why would anybody else ever put themselves out there unless you just have the cleanest white shiny records with no blemishes whatsoever? It doesn't matter. Then they will find something to attack you and try to ruin your life.
Say something that's not true, and
Yeah.
and it does its damage. So yeah, so two thoughts there. um, when you get into politics, and the same can be said for my smaller experience on the NRA board of directors. When you get there at the NRA board or at Congress, they do this, hey, you're a family now, you're a part of us, come to all these cool parties, meet these things, we'll take you to these places, you can do some stuff, you meet these people, these are famous people. You have to be careful the pool you're about to get in, and you need to understand it. That doesn't mean you can't avoid it, but you're all of a sudden going to be meet the cool people. You're going to be like, "Ooh, cool! I didn't know I'd ever get to hang out with General so and so or Senator so and meet
Mhm.
famous people." Keeping yourself grounded and in your district. The other thought here, and it's above my desk, you can't see it. I'm sitting at my desk. Is a picture of George Washington at Valley Forge, and he's kneeling down praying. And I leave that above my desk to remind me of what they call him American Cincinnatus, after the Roman guy. And what Cincinnatus and George Washington both did was they got called up to serve, they served, and then they went home. In Washington's case and in Cincinnatus's case, they asked Washington to come back. Would you be president? And he said, sure, I'll do it, but I'm not going to stay. I'm going to go. I'm going to do good work, and then I'm going to leave. And he did it. And he could have remained emperor, as could Cincinnatus, who was a dictator when in a military time. We need people to understand that they should go do good work, find somebody to replace them, and leave. And people say, well, there's no power in that in politics. Horse pucky. You do go do good work. You connect with people like your friend. He's going to run. He's going to spend some time. He's going to get on an airplane and come back and spend time with other farmers and share his story. And the minute he stops doing any of that, That is when you should be concerned. That's when he should be concerned. Keeping those roots, reminding people, go do good work and leave. Every public official should be doing that. It should not be a career. Can it be a stepping stone in your life? Sure. You want to go be a state from a state senator to a House seat in the U.S. Congress? Great. I'm glad you're able to do that. But if it becomes a career, when a senator starts running for a third term, 18 years in the U.S. Senate, I'm sorry, but I've probably lost interest in what you're doing. My local congressman, it's 12 or 14 years now. He's the chairman of a committee. He's a nice enough guy. During I helped load some trailers to North Carolina for some relief, getting some much needed supplies with some scouts right after that happened. And he showed up. He did the shaking babies and shaking hands and kissing babies thing. He showed up. He delivered some water. The sheriff showed up and everyone took pictures and whatnot. It's good. You have to do that as a politician. I understand, but we need people who are not going to carve out a long-term place for themselves. It's real hard to get somewhere, especially in politics, and then say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go home. I'm going to be done here." But that's what we need. We need citizens who are going to fill these roles. Like you said, it's so hard to find people to run, but we need
Well,
them.
the other problem is, you ever watch Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
My precious.
Yes. Oh,
Somebody gets into that position
I know.
and they get a little drunk on power, prestige, whatever, and they don't know how to handle that. That is one of the things that drives me insane in life is people that have a position of power but have no idea how to handle it or abuse it and to think they can go on with it. I've been a guy that has been in a position that we're been over 1,800 people in the military and over billions of dollars at the same time. I was the same guy when I woke up in the morning. I never let any of that go to my head. I didn't ever abuse it. I was like, uh, you should be reserved to wield any power, especially when you're in a position of power.
Yes.
Uh, it's hard to find people like that that don't want to be like, oh, look here, I got the ball. Let me run with it and spike it all over the place because it's my ball. And it's just it's just a human problem to find just decent people that have good intentions that can will not get corrupted by being placed in one of those positions. That's hard to ask. That's history throughout the world. There might be good people, then they get in a position and they just can't handle it and they become corrupt.
So
Not
John Lewis is was a civil rights activist in the South, famous congressman from the Atlanta area, and he did a lot of good stuff on the civil rights side. Served in Congress a long time. I disagreed with probably everything he did in Congress, but the thing that struck me when he got terminally ill, someone posted, basically, "I'm going to stay in power." Sir, you can no longer serve your purpose. John McCain did the same thing. When you are terminally ill, when you're doing these things, you're no longer doing it for you. No, excuse me, you're doing it for you and not for the people. There needs to be a shift there where the people just say, you know what, I appreciate you. Just like I said, go do good work. I appreciate you. You did some great stuff. Go write a book, go do some things, get involved again in a different arena. But if we the my precious thing, it is dangerous. So when I ran for the NRA board, and I can only talk from my experience here, my attorney and my accountant sat me down and said, basically, look, Tim, you like to do the right thing. You need to be aware of what you're headed into. And they said, look, it's going to cost you a lot of money, but you can take no reimbursement, no hotels, no airfare. They said, even pay them back for the meals and the business cards. I did all of that. It was expensive to do it, but I wasn't owned by anyone. I could listen to the members. I could prove that I could get on the NRA ballot without the help of the nominating committee because had proven myself and continued by my travels to do it. We need that in our politicians. I don't need them to do it for free. But what we do need is to continue to see who they are, what they are, and where they came from. The moment they buy into the My Precious, it's time to go. And a lot of them are very good at having two faces. When everyone's been a teenager, so you're different around adults. Politicians are like teenagers sometimes. You get a different person when a camera's on. It's all elbows to the microphone. But when nobody's around, who are they? Well, that's, it's who they become, and that's what concerns you and me, and probably most of the people listening.
And in my perspective, I try to be I try to be the same guy to everybody now, depending on where I'm at. I'm around my filthy army buddies. I probably have a little bit filthier mouth than I have around my mama or respect. I show respect with my dirty mouth, whatever.
It happens.
But I'll admit that I have it. I've got a filthy sailor army mouth. And I try to keep it in check, but when I'm around these hooligans and we're all being army guys or anything like that, sometimes it comes out. I don't feel like that as being that's just a respect thing. That's not me
Sure.
being, but I try to keep my same values.
Yes.
Uh, I don't know if it always serves me well being the same guy, the same personality. I probably better act a little bit better in some situations, but I'd rather just be true and that way that if you're telling the truth all the time, you don't have to remember the lies that you made up and keep your story straight. So just be honest with folks, and they can either take it or they can't, and it makes my head sleep a little bit better at night, just knowing like, hey, I put it out there, and it's nothing for me to worry about. They might have a problem with it, but I feel good about saying what I believe to be honest, and not like I said, not having to uh, carry on these dual personalities or try to try to fool people into liking you or believing you, or it's just all lies when you're one way and then you're like, oh, but we're going to do it, we just say that out here to appease these people. Here's
Right.
what's really happening. That's just that's is one of the most disgusting qualities I can think of is being two-faced like that. I'd rather somebody there's plenty of Democrat politicians that I disagree with, but I have respect for, even though I think they're crazy, because at least they're upfront and honest and lay it all out. Hey, this is who I am, and this is what I believe in. I can handle that all day
Yeah.
instead of the two-faced, because then you know what you are and what you're dealing with instead of just people being dishonest.
Yes.
I'll take somebody I disagree with 1,000% that is at least honest about who they are all
Yes.
day.
Yes.
And authenticity.
Sure.
I mean, that is a crave right now, and let's spin that into what's happening right now. We're a few days away from a presidential election, and I think that the authenticity, just besides crazy policies, but I think authenticity is what's winning some people over because there's one candidate that drives tons of people crazy and they despise him regardless of what he does. It doesn't matter if he ran into a building and saved an orphanage and saved 40 kids, they'd find something that he did wrong in it
Yeah.
and make something bad about it. And but then on the other side, you have Miss Harris, the vice president, that just seems so inauthentic on everything that she does that I think that they were worried about her not having interviews in front of people. Now I think that they're worried that she's had too many interviews in front of people to figure out she was getting beat up on for not coming out and talking, and now that she's coming out and talking, she's getting beat up on even worse. I do believe.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah. This
so I
strategy.
don't know where we're coming down on this one. I do
Yeah.
think it's very
We are.
pivotal for the direction and future of our country. I know everybody says that one every time, but I feel it even different. That I feel like this is a fork at the road of which way this country's going to go for a long time. Perhaps we always have to fight on the conservative side because it just drifts. Seems like it drifts along towards the other side, whether you put any effort into it or not.
Right.
Uh,
You know,
so we got to
Ford
claw it back.
Ford ran a campaign, or actually in 76 when he was running against Carter, where he didn't do a lot of interviews and kind of just did stuff in the Rose Garden and kind of stayed at the White House. And the whole process forced him to come out at the end. And how and why Ford lost, that's a whole story in itself. But Biden ran that kind of Rose Garden, I'm not going to be seen campaign in 2020, and I'm not going to say it didn't work because I'm not a big believer in the end result, because I think I have too many questions. People are like, well, you can't question an election. I'm not an
You're not
election
alone.
denier. I know that an election happened, but I have a lot of questions, which we could spend a lot of time on ballots because I learned a lot about it. They changed the Colorado voting law under my feet for this election, but to get to this election, to talk about that. Everyone who could hear us talking needs to know, don't trust the polls, don't trust early voting numbers, don't trust a chart, don't trust social media, don't trust your neighbor in the sense of, hey, this is wrapped up, you don't have to do it. We have to go out and participate. There is no one coming. We are the cavalry, the citizens, because if we do not participate, if we do not show up in record numbers, we will lose our constitutional republic. People say, oh, you're being too dramatic. No, I'm listening to Hillary Clinton. I'm listening to former secretaries of state talk about, well, I think we need to kind of restrict the First Amendment. It's a little too much. No, folks, they are coming after your Constitution. These kind of conversations that we're having here won't happen. The algorithm will make them go away. And when we lose discourse, when we lose that reasonable Democrat, reasonable Republican conversation, we are in real trouble. So we have to rise to the occasion. We have to go to the ballot box. We cannot yield. Everyone must go. And I'm telling everyone, as I'm not a fan of early voting, but that is the system we have now in a lot of places. So go early, vote, get other people to vote, have discussions about voting, take 10 people to vote if you can, help people get to the polls. But if we, because we're trying to avoid any election day tomfoolery, we're not, the internet's, the Homeland Security's talked about a denial of service attack for the internet on November 5th. Okay, let's skip all that. Let's just get there early to make sure there's printer ink and that the ballots are the right size. Make sure that your vote is counted. It's your right as a citizen to do so. If you do not exercise it, we will lose all of this. Um, I continue in social media. I'm constantly typing that. They were like, Trump's up, Trump's this, Trump's that. Don't buy any of it because it's not real till the ballots are counted. And then who knows what's going to happen after that.
Can I ask you where you stand in your religion?
I'm a Baptist.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things, why do you think it is that the uh, the number of voting Christians is so low?
I have a real hard time with that. And my church, I go to Silverdale Baptist Church, and I got in the Chattanooga area, and I have to call them out because they are encouraging people to vote. They are doing it. They're having a voter drive. They're not telling who people to vote for, but they're engaged in doing that. So in this case, I live in a unique environment where they took the time to say, look, you need to be involved. Why? I think a lot of people have had this understanding of church as separation of church and state. It's not actually a church. It doesn't mean that the church can't be involved in engaging people in the thought process. But I think some people get wrapped around the pole on that, and I think that also the morality of politics and, well, I don't like my choices, and, well, I don't like this guy mean tweets, and I don't like this lady because how she got where she is in political office. I don't like my choices. Well, that brings us back to, we need good people to do it. Maybe some of those people could do it, but I think we need to change the understanding among church goers that politics is going to continue to happen right up until Jesus shows up, right? So we need to be engaged. And again, I think it's going to take people that are bold, to willing to have those conversations in church. People say, "Well, this isn't the place for that." I disagree. I very much disagree. Doesn't mean we can't be polite. It doesn't again mean we can't have a normal conversation. That's what we've talked about through this entire conversation, is being able to have a conversation. And I have some fundamental beliefs which aren't in the Constitution, which still concern me. I'm still going to talk about those. But if we don't encourage people standing in the front of the room talking to us to, hey, look, we need as citizens this, we need your guidance. You don't even need to tell us who to vote for. What we need you to do is share why we should participate, because the Bible is full of ways that we can and should participate. And it's not happening. Although I'm seeing in social media and some reels and other places where some churches are doing it, but there needs to be a whole lot more of that. So we're having this conversation now, and we can't have this conversation again in 2028. We have to have it in 2024, 2025, 2026. It needs to be a continuing thing. Just like in school, we have an education, we need to have a thought process in our churches.
No doubt. Can I run a moral dilemma by you? That since we're talking about Christians and voting and politics,
Sure.
well, I have a buddy. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's because all the mistakes I've made in my life. People come to me and looking for advice all the time. I don't know if I was just a well-rounded guy, but I get people all the time, and this was an army buddy that called me up that I'd served with in the past, and he had had some of the same stuff in his hometown, like we had here, where they just felt like they were under just a crazy rule, a dictator in their city, and this they had a female mayor that was just going crazy, making their lives hell. So they did some grassroots stuff and got some people up, and he found another older military member that he went to work with or went to church with, and they got him to run. And during this process, he thought really highly of this man, and during this process, he found out that this man had hit his wife, gave
Mm,
her a black eye.
mhm,
But it was so bad, he didn't know what to do at the time. The guy had confessed it to him and had asked forgiveness for God and whatnot. And then, but the guy won, and he
mm,
never did say anything because it was right before the election.
sure.
And, and he, and then he saw how the guy got in there. He had all the respect for this man, and then he saw how he got in there and how he acted.
Right.
And this guy was just in turmoil because he felt guilty because he knew this about this man and he helped him get elected. And then he saw how he turned out. And this guy's running for reelection again. And he was wondering about, should he say anything? What should he do? Should he even bring this up? Because he found out that this wasn't an isolated incident, that this had been going on. And that's just that character of that man had just been shattered in his eyes. And this was the guy representing their city.
Mm,
And he's up for reelection now. And this guy was in a moral dilemma. Do I even bring this up? And he came to me and I said, hey, have you asked for forgiveness from God? And in this, whatever you think that your part is in this, whatever you think that you've done bad in this, have you asked for forgiveness? And he said yes. And then my advice is, what do you do? Do you go out there? Do you put that in public? Do you let God sort that out? Is it his duty to go out and say, hey, this is what I know about this guy now, even though he's not supporting him? I think that I don't know if the city will support him or not for reelection, but my thing on that, more limit. You want to do the right thing, but is your job to put that out in public and tear that man down further, or do you let God's eye keep on that and let God work that out? What would you do in that situation if you were that guy?
yeah, that's a serious dilemma because look, God's eye is the thing, right? I mean, God will make that judgment. I this is probably why I'm not why I when I offered to run, I was pretty much given a house seat if I wanted it in Western Colorado, and I'm like, I can't do it because what you're asking, I'm not going to do. Um, I would have a hard time. Well, he isn't supporting him. I would have a hard time not saying anything because I'm human and I don't think that's right. And I'm far from perfect. I've made mistakes. I've made some big ones. I've never hit anyone like that. And I'd have a pretty big problem with it. I think I would probably share my concern with my pastor, and my pastor would listen and say, "What do I do?" Because that's the guidance where I'm going to do that, or people I trust. And he called you. I think I would call people I trusted in my pastor and figure out a path to maybe talk to that person directly and say, "Look, I understand this wasn't an isolated incident, and I'm not God. You will have to deal with that. But are you the right person to be handling this? Maybe with other people in the room." And how he handled that might be how I reacted afterwards. Now, and sometimes people are so good at hiding who they are. You're convinced that he's changed his ways finally, and you think, well, maybe,
Well, I think that their relationship is so degraded now that I don't even think that they speak, and he knows this information.
yeah,
Uh, and
I'd
he's
have a
just
hard
sitting
time.
on it, and he feels like he should let the public know, but I just don't know something like that if you should let the public know or just let God sort it out.
I think the public should know. God's gonna sort it out. So that's a given. They're gonna know who the person is behind the door, behind the curtain. But and again, no one's perfect, but that's not somebody that I need, and someone that I'm going to trust isn't going to do that. Now, again, might they make all politicians make bad mistakes because they're human? But I probably would actually probably say something. That would be me. Would it get traction? I don't know. But I think I would probably, even though I don't want to talk to that person, I think I would probably try and have a private conversation and how they dealt with it because I've had some really difficult conversations. We all have, where I don't want to have this conversation, whether it be with your teenager or a business partner or somebody in politics or a whole bunch of smart people in a room trying to get something done. And all of a sudden, somebody disagrees. We've had those hard conversations. I think that it has to be a hard conversation to dictate the direction of how he's going to do it. Because me morally, I have a hard time. I had a hard time in Colorado when they said, shut up, sit down, and take it. I did not sit down and take it. I just couldn't do it. I was like, nope, I've never done this before. You guys have ruined my business plan. You're trampling on my rights. I'm not going to sit here and take it. I think you're doing wrong. Am I perfect? No, but I've never done something like that. And the same thing with the NRA. When I believed something was wrong, I had to say something. I had no choice because of who I am. I have to look at myself in the mirror, and I'm disappointed often in what I see in the mirror and what I can do. And my teenagers look at me and go, who is my dad? What is he doing? I have to live up to that. And the people who know me as a moral person to do the best I can. I would probably, like I said, with other people, get advice from other people, maybe have someone else in the room to make sure that things aren't said beyond the thing. Stay on point as a, hey, yeah, I have concerns here. You apparently this is not a new thing. I think you should step aside. I think you should need to address this, or what have you done to address this morally? And if I don't like the answer, I'm probably talking. Whether anyone's listening or not is a separate story, but I'm probably talking, and that's probably it is the reason why I'm not. A mutual friend of ours encouraged me to run for governor and do all these other things. I can't not do the right thing, sometimes to my own detriment.
And
Um,
I can feel you. Believe me, you're talking to a guy that uh, I'm very much like that. I I I try so hard to do the right thing, and a lot of times it's against my own self interest, but it just cripples me to not do that. You know.
yep. Yep, it's hard doing that, and it sounds like, and you've had it sometimes at great personal cost. When I spoke the truth about the NRA thing, I have been blackballed for years. No one, not everyone. I earned the trust of being the honest guy who said stuff out loud. But I had years of people speaking badly about me and doing things. Famous people, generals, senators, Marion Hammer of Florida, who basically created the concealed carry movement around the country, said bad things about Tim Knight, so he must be evil and bad. No, what I was actually asking for was a full accounting. I just wanted the truth, nothing else, nothing. I had questions. The questions should have been answered. So we
It's
do it
always something when somebody doesn't want to give up some information or answer questions.
right.
Then what are you hiding? Come on
Right,
now.
right. And again, who's perfect? I'm not. I'm far from perfect. I'm human. I make mistakes. I've been married twice, so I got it wrong once. Not proud about that. I love my wife. I made a mistake the first time, but I don't like to make mistakes. But I also know that if I let something fester, if I let something go too long, and this can be, of course, applied to politics, whether it be personal or not, is if we ignore something or don't pay attention to it, whether it's our kids' education, our local government, our county government, our state government, our federal government, or what the United States is doing at the United Nations. And it's so complicated. But if we don't have people we trust to talk with us and share this stuff, we're not going to learn, and we're going to continue to get stuck in this place where you don't even have time to look at what morally who you are. We need that in our lives. We need honest people who are going to do their best to do it. And that's why we need proxies sometimes to catch up and share a story or listen to a podcast or whatnot. I do that while I walk my dog. I catch up on my podcasts. This is what we need. We need to carve out some time to do some learning and to pay attention and to question ourselves. Did I make that decision right? Okay, I didn't. I asked my teenager when he gets a not optimal grade on a test. I'm not mad at him for getting a bad grade. He doesn't get bad grades, but he misses something. I want to know, what did you learn? What could you change to not make that mistake again? Because I do the same thing for myself. And as citizens, as people engaged, we need to do the same thing. I'm not asking anyone to do anything we all shouldn't try and do. And to round this back to your friend, I'd probably have to have the confrontation slash conversation and then lay it out. But again, that's why I'm not a
Yeah,
congressman or a senator, because I can't do it.
it's hard, and I get it. It takes some resilience for people to do the right thing when they just get frustrated. They're like, "What's the point?
Yep.
What does it matter?" Even, and that's what really happens. That people stop doing the right thing because they feel like, "Hey, there's no point to this. Well,
Right.
I'm the only one doing this. What does it matter?" And then everybody's not doing the right thing because it makes it so much easier, and it just slacks off, and then everything just falls off, and everybody's just going around, and we get into a mess.
Yes.
That's throughout history in the world when people just stop doing the right thing, and it makes it much easier just to join in with doing the wrong thing when nobody else is doing the right thing. That's just human nature
It is.
to
It is
follow
hard.
the leader there.
Yeah, and
But
what we're literally looking for is follow the example. And we have some. And on November 5th, we have two examples. Are either of them perfect? Nobody would tell you they
far
are.
from it.
Far from it. And do I agree with everything that Mr. Trump has to say? No, I don't. I don't think he was actually very good on gun rights. I don't. Was I super thrilled about his economic stuff? Yes. Do I hate inflation now? Yes. Do I hate the crime now? Yes. I mean, I carry a gun everywhere I go. I have for a long time. I don't carry it because I'm looking for something. I'm prepared. I'm not paranoid. I'm
Very.
prepared. But I don't want to have to use it, but to defend my life and my children, I will do so. I don't want to do that, but this is a very rare thing in this country that we can even do something like that. So that our freedom of speech and the rest of the amazing constitution that we have comes down to choices on November 5th. Do you want to keep them or would you like them further degraded? It's really
Yeah, it is. It comes down to that, and that's where we're at. Like I said, it's a fork in the road that I got my prayers in to. I think we're what I grew up thinking about the United States is what I do believe we can be.
yes,
It's nowhere near that right now. When I was little, I thought, I mean, what a the greatest place, and you like, okay, they're from the U.S. government, must trust them. They have our best interests at heart. Now that's shattered. That's
yes,
out the window.
yes,
There's not one, and I'll tell you, just it's just the positions I've gone through from being in the military, being around generals and everybody else, and whoever. Being a lawyer, being a judge, being around all these people, I've realized all these positions that people look up to and think highly of or tout or anything. Who cares? They're just normal people trying not to fall on their face, and some of them have bad intentions.
yes,
So I don't put any. I don't care if it's president. I don't care if you're a billionaire. You got to use a toilet like me. You got to eat food like me. You got to drink water like me. You got to go to bed like me.
yes,
There's there's nothing special about anybody in this world. There's good people. There's bad people. There's mediocre people. There's just people just meandering through life. Uh, but there's some definitely bad actors out there that have bad intentions. And if the good people and the people that just meandering through life don't wake up and pay attention, they're going to be underneath the rule of those bad people and have little control over their lives. So it takes you waking up. It takes you paying attention. I don't care if you're involved in politics or not. It's going to be involved in you if you don't get involved in it and make some differences and pay attention a little bit. I think that we have the numbers. If we get these people that believe in gun rights, that believe in God, just to get them to vote. And I think that some of that's happening now when you look at the numbers and the Republican the registrations have gone it
they
has
have.
flip flopped wildly, which is a great sign for this.
Yes,
Whether you like Trump or not, you you'd have to think that as divisive as he might be, because they made that divisiveness. It was
sure they
manufactured
did.
divisiveness against
Yes.
Trump. It's not like he was out doing causing it. They
No,
never let him rest.
no, they didn't.
It was a
There's
constant
lawfare on him.
barrage.
Yes. There's
So I
lawfare
mean
on him.
that war, but that turned out to wearing everybody out because it was nonstop Trump, 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 Trump. Oh, it's terrible Trump, terrible Trump, and I mean it worked to turn people
Until it
against Trump.
didn't. Until it didn't, because
Yeah, but
people were just yeah,
now look at it. There's no way. Like he had these back in 2020, they were saying how racist he was, and now he has all that like these like the Pittsburgh Steelers athletes coming out there. That wouldn't have happened in 2020. There's all these people that are like, "Hey, I'm good with Donald Trump." That's because Kamala Harris is so bad that I don't know if they would ever have agreed with Trump. But they're just like, "Hey, this other lady's so bad. Okay, I'm okay with Trump now. He's not as bad as what you said he was 4 years ago."
right.
I think people are like, even if he was that guy, I think I'll take him this time around.
I've had some people who don't agree with me politically and, say, "Well, Trump isn't really as bad as they made him out to be. He just isn't." And then they got to live 3.5 years of not Trump, and just asinine thought process and how let's just keep spending money. Well, that one has no consequences. Yes, it does. Welcome inflation. Everyone's feeling it. Things cost almost double what they did in some cases. We're looking at gas. We're looking at food, groceries. These affect everyday people. Those are the things where people sit and they're like, well, what should I do here? Or you go to the hospital and look, I'm a huge fan of legal immigration. I have friends from all over the world that would love to come here and they can't because it's so hard. But I'm not a big fan of people who break our laws and come here and take our jobs away and clog our medical system. Now, again, that brings us back to the whole what Americans do. Americans are very giving people. We're glad to help other people. But until we help ourselves, until we're good as a nation, we're not going to be effective at helping others. We give a whole lot of foreign aid. I bet you we could give a whole lot more foreign aid, or people go on mission trips and make a difference. We're going to be able to do fewer of those things because we're paying for stuff that we don't even understand. I mean, I went to the hospital a couple of weeks ago, and there were a lot of people there that didn't speak English. Um, Again, I don't hate them as individuals. I don't. I understand you're going to do what you have to do for your family, and you go to the hospital. But what I do know is most of them are not paying those bills. The American taxpayers are paying those bills, and we have run out of money trillions of dollars ago. And that has to change. It has to change. And until we engage, and again, as we've talked about through the entire time, engage in caring enough to make ourselves whole, make ourselves right, sit down and do our budget at home, sit down and do our budget in Washington. Stop passing these stupid omnibus bills at 3 a.m. and they get it the night before and then they pass it and they're like, well, you better. Because a congressman, like your friend who's going, they can never be specialists in everything. So they have to trust staffers and lobbyists to give them something. Okay, but who's getting hosed here? Our great grandchildren are now getting hosed, assuming the republic lasts that long, because we just keep
Yes.
spending money. So, yeah, to wrap it up, November 5th, they always say this, every election is the most important election. And you're right. That is true. Every election is the most important election. Might this be a fork in the road? Sure, because we're going to have less republic, more democracy slash socialism. Not interested. It hasn't worked anywhere else. So let's just skip that and stick with our
Well,
Constitution.
what is your prediction here?
I think it's going to be tight. I think it's really going to come to voter turnout. It could be if people get off their duff and go vote, that Trump could swing a couple of those states. I do believe Trump will win. If this were an honest election, and that there weren't mail out ballot tomfoolery. I really believe Trump would win. But I caution everyone who hears me say that if you didn't vote, you were part of the problem why we didn't get the result our country, I believe, needs. And you know what the cool part is? If you don't like Trump, again, in 4 years, you get to say again. I can't say that will be the case if Kamala Harris wins. Can't say that.
Uh,
I'm not confident in that.
Well, I think we've covered a lot today. What do you have going on right now? What are you immediately doing in the world right now? You're in Tennessee. Where can
Yes.
people go to find you? What are you involved in?
I'm currently off mostly the electronic grid. I'm recovering from the NRA lawsuits. I am getting ready to start a long form interview in-field interview process, kind of like this one, in the Second Amendment community. And I will be traveling around the country meeting people and doing that again because I enjoy meeting people. And we're finalizing a name, and I'm building out a studio in the house. Um, and the soundproofing, man, that stuff's expensive. But building that and gonna get out there at this next year. I'm not even sure if you and I would even be able to have shows like this if Kamala Harris wins. I'm building the studio like I can and will, but that's where I'm headed. Right now, I can be found on social media. It's Timothy Knight or Tim Knight for USA on X or Twitter, and that's probably the best place to find me. I'm definitely pretty much all my posts are go vote, don't trust anyone, go vote right now. But yeah, that's where I am. I'm coming out of the the doldrums of dealing with the lawsuits and I never stopped being relevant because I've been encouraging people to vote. I've worked with a couple of people to get out the vote. I'm doing stuff behind the scenes a lot. I'm actually helping with a Senate campaign, but most of my stuff has been quiet, been behind the scenes for a while, and I'm now ready to come back out into the light because that's where I prefer to be.
Well, I hope you'll stay in contact with us when all that gets going. Maybe shout at us and we have you back on or swap back and forth some way or another.
Well, I think I may need to come out to Oklahoma and find some of my Second Amendment friends in Oklahoma, and we'll have you come out and do it with us.
Hey, no doubt. I'm part of the Second Amendment Club, the Oklahoma 2A here, and they actually do a good job here in Oklahoma. They get people involved in the Oklahoma Second Amendment. I don't always agree with everything that they're doing,
You get it?
uh, but they have done some great work on getting us. I think we're one of the better laws in the nation
You are.
when it comes to guns. So they've done some good work, and I appreciate them. I've been a member for a little bit, and they've even endorsed me in the past when I ran. So I'm all about it. I'm a hunter, military guy. I was raised with weapons my entire life. Knew safety from since I was little. My dad was a big NRA guy. Uh, I got friends that send their kids to the camps out in New Mexico or Arizona, wherever it's at,
Yeah.
and uh, I'm all about it. It's been a great thing overall to get people to notice. I don't know all the insides and outs of what all you have done with it and if they're doing wrong and all that kind of stuff, but
We'll sit down over a dinner and adult beverage and we'll chat.
sounds like a good one. But I would say overall, generally, that it's still a positive, even if they've got some issues inside the organization. But
Could be said of anything humans are involved with.
yes. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your insight today. I think there's some great stuff that you've shared with us. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you coming on here. Who is Kelly Lynn? And hopefully, we'll talk to you in the future. All right.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate it. You have a good day.
You
We'll
too.
talk to you later.
Perfect.
Bye.